Friends, I had a demoralizing fake friendship with an American white woman that posed as a feminist. Nothing against whites, I have context on that shortly. This time, a self-identified rad feminist. It's a pattern of friendships I shouldn't be silent about with how divisive in general society is. They said things that I should address in hope to prevent more people falling into nihilism, or worse, a privileged, supremacist, chauvinist mindset. The weight of every person who alienates and shuns others adds to why some people ultimately end their own lives. Men take their own life 4 times the rate women do in this country for reasons I'll get to. She said women shouldn't be responsible for abuse they take out on men, perhaps even children, because men traditionally oppressed women. It seems they went as far to say it was encoded in women's DNA by the oppressors. Half Earth's population. I found that take dangerous. As someone who values women's rights and hates gender roles, I know that encouraging women to have no responsibility would only hurt the reputation of not only women, but also women who suffer most. Ego-chasing fakes, pretending to be feminist, are what feed the far right and resentment for women. What she promoted was learned helplessness and apathy. I know how obscene statistics are on women who get raped. She'd virtue signal and weaponize it when shaming me. Women get violated 10 times the rate that men do, and that is why I stay practical in hopes people will respect and protect women rather than disparage the innocent. I saw the headline of some woman attacked on public transport, and no one wanted to help her. Faith should be restored in helping people. My theory on why the lady wasn't helped is several things. The root of capitalist culture is proud, ruthless exploitation of people. It erodes chivalry in public and private conscience. It hypes the fear and shame of not being successful, or even just getting by, to a degree that we hardly see each other as people. And now, men are catching on to how much gender supremacists try to represent Western feminism lately versus equality. Self-proclaimed feminists tried to block off a meeting on men's poor mental health in Toronto. And there are plenty more examples where fake feminists show that contempt for human life, setting horrid example for activism. Though it makes sense that some activists devolve into rivalry, since capitalist society is all about ruthless competition for privileges above others rather than equity. I'll continue. The way society alienates and objectifies everyone into hierarchies based on the worth of good looks, wealth, job, and education, that's a major reason why people see no problem violating each other in every way, some of which are socially acceptable. We have no noble inspiration to see each other as family. We're all just competing rivals to each other for the social ladder, and numbers to the capitalists. During the Cold War, anti-communism was so rife in America that there were official purges of anyone considered Marxist who worked in education, from university down to elementary school. Marxists know class hierarchy sows division and rivalry among the people, destroying understanding and respect for each other. In a toxic, capitalist social environment, people look for reasons to justify discrimination like racism and sexism. People commit more crime, and there are more predators. The function of discrimination is to handicap rivals so that you can move up the class hierarchy. Women advanced quickest in the Soviet Union because class division was the enemy. When America purged those Marxists from being able to get jobs, oppression and identity became more about competing and blaming other identities. A more controlled opposition. This is part of why we still have plenty discrimination of all kinds. We have little reason to respect each other because we're all playing the status and money game more than anything. Token validation, tribalism, and pride isn't really respect. It's so bad that I've been mocked several times for merely saying this by those who feel oppressed. They thought class is a rival identity that ignored their pain. Our elite and the market appropriate identity into a cash grab. It's for their own profit and to pretend that they care so that we don't question. You see it when products and movies cheaply cater to certain oppressed people, then get backlash for being slop with crude story and character. It doesn't make the oppressed look better. Edward Bernays was a top man in public relations and advanced American propaganda. He got women to start smoking under the guise of feminism. Even further back than that, most early leading feminists furthered white supremacy. Rebecca Felton said to lynch 1,000 blacks a week to stop them from voting. She thought any non-whites were rapists for voting, so it was under the guise of protecting women. These are how identity can act when ignoring the class system. In 1936, a black boy was lynched and his family home burned to the ground because a white girl falsely accused him of groping her. This happened a lot, and there are still many men who get falsely accused by women taking advantage of the innocent image women generally possess. I've been framed in general a lot by women specifically. It couldn't be any more downplayed on how much it destroys your brain. They had no shame because of reasons I said earlier. The root of this culture is predatory manipulation and exploiting, the same mindset of actual rapists. But back to the boy. She didn't confess this happened until her deathbed. When the boy got lynched, he was beaten and his genitals were cut off. She watched it all happen. It was all just because his sisters had prettier dresses than she did, and she just didn't like it. So she lied. It's cold out, sorry. The rad femme I spoke to thought ancient respect for women didn't exist. Not true. The Celts, Etruscans, Egyptians, Persians, Norse, Indians, and Maya were all very interesting reads. Nomadic cultures had high respect for women in general. Not to say women were generally seen equal. For those that think I was mostly trying to get laid with her, give it a rest. I sought deep connection with the opposite sex before I was old enough to have urges. I made this video because I got trashed as a friend for the last time, and how ignored this gender war is. I'm not trying to favor men in this video. The rape men off themselves is laughed at as an emergency, so I had to bring up a lot this once. She reminds me of the early racist feminist because she was so prideful in her eugenic beliefs in general. Her identity was center of the universe. She even stated that all men are higher status than women. Excuse me while I ask the poorest men how they feel about this, in a country that revolves around money, degrees, and image more than anything. We didn't talk long because she blocked me after I stood up for my past. She tried to force that the many women that abused me growing up shouldn't be taken personal because I didn't go through rape. Just want to add that I was disturbed how she assumed most people that abused me were raped. What a slap in the face from someone who gloated they were an emotional support doll. I doubt they were ever supportive. The irony is that she supports prostitution, despite that it's objectifying. Perhaps people just support whatever they think benefits themselves. I don't say outlaw prostitutes in case someone tells me it would increase rape. I oppose it on principle to inspire intimacy as a sacred thing to be protected, which could also prevent predators. I believe setting long-term example would lead to deeper improvement between men and women. She forced herself onto my past, like she knew all my details, until I felt no choice but to say the sum of all that happened to me was as bad as rape, and that I don't take things out on strangers. She freaked out so bad at that, and told me it meant I don't empathize women, and was probably a predator myself. She also said she doesn't believe my past stories that I post to YouTube because I'm male. Repeated character destruction over the years, gossip, and belittling like that adds a lot to why men end themselves. This is how my dad died, and my friend's dad. Women are encouraged to use those tactics by this sick society because patriarchy isn't alone. I'm talking about the extreme narcissism, not feminism. Cultural misandry benefits the system since sexes hating each other will spend more to cope, and are too distracted with tribalism to really question deep. Men commonly don't have much emotional worth to anyone, if at all. They're the least loved. That's what makes mental abuse so deadly to them. Men very much get their worth from hard work and approval from women. So enough mental abuse from women can hurt them most. I mean, my dad always prided his work most the few times he visited. Men who show vulnerability are shamed significantly by men and women. That is much why men don't get much worth from places that matter, and why we aren't as nurtured as women to form bonds or be expressive. The way the Radfem said men being shamed for vulnerability isn't true, then shamed my vulnerability 5 seconds later, was so profoundly disturbing that I don't know what to do. I can't deal with more unself-aware NPCs of that level. They've surrounded my life here in Seattle and shamed me out of the only good social space at college with fake rumors to the staff. It's the peak of loneliness, outcasting, and alienation. I think I'm done socializing. I'm leaving the country before something even worse happens to my mental health. I don't want to take my own life and just be the millionth forgotten statistic after being constantly framed and gaslit for evil since childhood. It builds up on the conscience over the years, no matter my cope. I've always wondered whether I was just that physically ugly because of bad treatment. And a lot of other things. I'm not just talking about dating. Looks are life-changing. If they had committed the time and effort into asking about me and introduce our parents to each other, what would the odds of me being a predator be then? I don't think effort crossed their mind. I think they're content being oppressive themselves and have a horde of yes men for support. Spending time to study someone and their family is the most hated thing in the modern age. Time is just for careers and flexing status now. All by design to profit the capitalists, of course. They randomly refriended me just to accuse me of impersonating them on 4chan, a site I never used. I almost threw up and decided to get my head bashed in again at a boxing event just to distract myself. I don't think that they cared 1 ounce about the special privileges that women hold over men. Generally, believing women's word in disputes over men having more emotional support and charity, men are 3 times as homeless as women and are less incentivized to even do college in America. College is status. The emotional and social support is critical in this country. It's just taken for granted so often, like any wealth. Then there's gold digging, which shames the poor. These things combined led to the normalizing of women that are self-obsessed, which is why I try not to scroll Instagram. It hurts my eyes, but I guess not their thousands of followers. Overall, men just die sooner. Men helped create this situation, but not to the degree where women are innocent and shouldn't ever be held accountable. That's a horrible lie that hurts everyone. Nora Vincent was a feminist who tried to prove men are inherently more privileged in America by disguising herself as a man, and was shook with the reality of how wrong she was, through experience. I really wish she hadn't ended her life. She is the brave, sincere type of feminist I want to meet. I made this video because I believe humanity's only hope for improvement is both of its halves working together towards responsibility of our personal actions. Its practice trains emotional intelligence and empathy. When talking patriarchy, it's not good to imply tenfold shame and responsibility onto individuals you don't know, or tell them to just suck it up or it isn't personal to be abused. Isn't it part of the patriarchy to tell men to suck up everything and that their experience doesn't matter? It's so terribly ironic how many women tell men and myself to just eat it. She said men who don't open up because of women judging are just lying. This is a major force beating men and boys into not reporting their suffering, so we don't really know how bad they have it. We have people calling cops on men just taking their kids to the park. We just live with the feeling that we're suspected predators as it breaks us down slowly. Nobody was designed for this. It's all manipulation and divide and conquer. We live in an ironically very dark time for living in the information age, where it should be easier than ever to be skeptic of severe bias. All I have left to tell is the story of another broken man that inspired me. It's all his words. Otherwise, see you in the next video. I remember being homeless at 17, having finally been old enough to leave my abusive home, but still working my job at a coffee house. No one knew I was homeless except the cops that harassed me, ticketing me over and over for sleeping in my car, eating up my paychecks with fines until I couldn't pay anymore, at which point they put you on probation and draw out even more fines. Zero criminal record, drug-free, holding down a job, and just trying to make ends meet. It didn't matter. I was trashed to be chased down by the cops. There was no help for young men. Only women's shelters, only women's assistance, only women's free college, etc. Your pride and sense of masculinity keeps you waiting to ask for help until you're so hungry you can feel it up your stomach and in your throat. Then you finally seek assistance, and everyone looks at you in disgust because, hey, you're a man in the patriarchy, right? How dare you ask for help? Then you stew in your emotions, having traded what little bit of self-respect you have for nothing more than a horrifying reinforcement of what you already feared. You're worthless, not only to the people in your life, but to society as a whole. It wasn't until my probation officer came to arrest me for not showing up and found me half dead in a hospital bed with blood clots and walking pneumonia from sleeping in my car that someone took pity on me and got me out of the never-ending spiral of fines for just trying to live my life. Even then, that was only after the officer tried to drag me out of bed and caused a scene with the doctors and nurses. Again, I had zero criminal record, beyond tickets for being homeless, was drug-free, and was working full-time. I wasn't a leech or a danger. I was a young man on his own, trying to get by, and that seemed to be unacceptable for whatever reason. Thank God I made it out. A lot of young men never do.